Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
You better behave appropriately. You better follow our public health guidelines or we'll come down on you like a ton of bricks.
Quarantine idea quashed. The Premier's message to people from other provinces thinking about traveling to BC. Also,
no, give me your information. Give me your information. Give me your information. Give me your name and...
Who does this? The search for a woman who spat on a Victoria bus driver. And
this has all the hallmarks of a targeted hit.
Deadly shooting. A young man gunned down in a Langley neighborhood.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
good evening and thanks for joining us. Some tough talk today from BC's Premier.
John Horgan's message was aimed at people here and would-be visitors from other provinces. But for now, it's just talk. As
Zara Premji reports, the Premier and BC's top doctors are facing pressure to bring in more restrictions to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Keep up the good work. Thank you for doing that. Together we can get through this.
Time and time again, a consistent message, but after a year of much of the same, the words seem to be getting lost.
A government that's asking people to do more must itself do more in the areas where it can, and it isn't.
Now the provincial government is facing pressure to change course.
Rapid testing, elementary schools, interprovincial travel, it's not.
A sentiment echoed by frustrated British Columbians on social media is saying, I would really like to see stronger restrictions without wiggle room for interpretation, whether that's closing indoor dining in bars, closing non-essential businesses, more actively monitoring travel. Don't make us judge and decide. That's exhausting. Be strict. And we need travel restrictions and enforced monitored quarantine. As such, many are applauding Manitoba, where a 14-day quarantine will be in effect starting Friday for all travelers entering that province, Canadian or not. But when it comes to travel, John Horgan says Manitoba's situation is much different than ours.
There are 4 roads in and out of Manitoba.
To be clear, there aren't just 4 entry points into Manitoba, but Horgan says BC has so many more roads and airports.
Logistically, it would be a challenge. How would we monitor that?
Well, you know, that's what you get elected to do. You ask for the job, you have it. It is difficult. Who said it was easy? It's difficult. So, you know, that's not an excuse that's at all viable.
The Premier says there's not enough evidence of high COVID-19 spread through interprovincial travel, but if that evolves, he'll reassess. For now, the province doesn't look like it's going to change its method or its message. COVID fatigue aside, hunker down and do the right thing. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
And today marks the fewest number of deaths from COVID-19 in BC in 2 months, but still 4 more people have lost their lives. The province's death toll is now at 1,172. There are 485 new cases of COVID-19 in BC. More than 6,500 people are self-isolating from COVID-19 exposures. 303 people are in hospital. That includes 74 in the ICU. Active cases are close to 4,300. More than 124,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine have been administered in BC, with around 4,100 people inoculated a second time. And Interior Health is declaring a COVID-19 cluster in the Fernie region. 81 people have tested positive since the beginning of the year. 63 cases are currently active. Health officials have not been able to attribute the cluster to a particular location or event, but they say the transmissions have primarily come out of local social gatherings. Interior Health is urging all members of the community to follow public health guidelines, to keep household bubbles small, and to get tested at the first sign of any COVID-19 symptoms.
A Vancouver police officer has been hurt after a man who refused to wear a mask at the law courts got violent.
This was a senseless confrontation. It did not need to happen. This man showed complete disregard for the parameters set out by our provincial health officer. It escalated to the point where it didn't need to. Somebody got seriously injured, one of our members, and it did not need to go there.
Police said a 53-year-old man was not wearing a mask when he entered the courts and wouldn't put one on when asked to by a sheriff. He also wouldn't leave. When 2 officers responded, he became aggressive. allegedly kicking one of them and reaching for the officer's gun. BPD says as the man was being arrested, he fell on top of an officer, breaking his leg. He's now facing assault charges. The officer is expected to be off duty for several months.
And in Victoria, the search is on for a woman who appears on video to be spitting on a bus driver and throwing punches.
No, give me your information. Give me your information. Give me your information. Give me your name.
Police say the incident happened in October when the bus was cut off the road. As it came quickly to a stop, the woman fell out of her seat. She went to the driver, yelled, pulled on the plexiglass, and allegedly spat on the driver, then ran out. The driver wasn't hurt. The suspect is described as white, 5'4" with a slender build and long hair, wearing a light gray sweatshirt and dark leggings at the time. Police are asking anyone with information to contact them. Well, another proposed tuition hike at the University of British Columbia is frustrating its students.
Even though classes moved online because of the pandemic, the university has refused to reduce tuition. As
Rafferty Baker reports, some students say that's making a proposed increase even harder to stomach.
It's just quite the bomb to drop on us, emotionally speaking.
Second-year art student Joshua Peng didn't even get a full year in before the pandemic hit. His classes all went online, and he says he's missing out on a full university experience, including the social and networking side of things. Now Peng is coming to terms with a potential tuition hike for next year.
It was just upsetting to me, like everyone's going through a tough time right now. And as far as as far as I know, everybody's kind of still paying the same amount of money that they would pay in a normal year.
UBC is proposing a 2% increase for most students and 4% for new international students. In a written statement, University Affairs Director Matthew Ramsey attributes the increase to inflationary pressures, among other factors. He says the proposed increase is expected to bring in an extra $19 million, which will go toward areas impacted by COVID-19. He says this is a one-time allocation to help students cope with the extraordinary circumstances brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Institutions are in a very tough spot. Even before the pandemic, the post-secondary system in BC is chronically underfunded, and they have to rely more and more on tuition fees.
Keeping students and professors at home may have brought some savings on campus, but transitioning everything online comes with its own costs.
It is expensive trying to switch every professor and every service online, but if you speak to most students, they don't think that their quality of education is the same as it was before. And that's really unfortunate that institutions, especially ones with a lot of money, are still trying to take money from their students that are barely getting by.
UBC's projected $225 million deficit this year is improving. Ramsey says they're estimating less than half that amount, but it could still change. For Peng, the news that his education will likely cost more next year just comes at a bad time.
Yeah, it's just not a great time for a lot of people right now, I think.
Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, a court date and some strong words for the queue-jumping couple who allegedly flouted COVID rules and got vaccinated in the Yukon.
That's about as un-Canadian as you can get, and that was profoundly disappointing for me on a number of levels. You can't measure the contempt I think British Columbians have.
That was maybe the dumbest thing I've seen in a long while, Mackenzie. I don't know what was going through those people's minds. There's certainly a gesture of individual reconciliation and contrition that can be exercised. And
Multi-millionaire couple Rod and Ekaterina Baker are charged with failing to self-isolate after apparently chartering a plane from Whitehorse to Beaver Creek and getting vaccinated at a local mobile clinic. The small Indigenous community is declared high priority because of its remoteness and vulnerable population. The couple each face fines of $1,150, but White River First Nation wants stiffer penalties because the community with less than 100 people was put at risk. The couple has a court date in Whitehorse on May 4th.
Metro Vancouver's gang war erupted in a quiet Langley neighborhood last night, and again, It was deadly.
As Isabel Regam reports, there's hope surveillance video may reveal some answers.
The sounds of what may be gunshots in a deadly shooting. The video obtained by CBC appears to capture the moments a 22-year-old man was shot to death in Langley Tuesday night.
This has all the hallmarks of a targeted hit. Our victim was known to police.
It happened in this residential neighborhood at 207th Street and 53A Avenue around 11:30 p.m. The victim killed in a vehicle. Another man, also in his 20s, was shot, but he is expected to recover. The resident who provided CBC the video says it was sent to police as soon as she learned what had happened.
And when we looked at it this morning, we saw a whole bunch of crazy stuff.
The video was taken from this surveillance camera tucked inside the scooter. The owner says she put it in there after a series of minor thefts in the area. She hopes it provides clues to investigators. Specifically, she points to a truck in the footage that appears just moments before the shots rang out.
He just rode right over the curb, the truck, and then we could hear the tires squeal where it turned around right there. And then he went down that way.
Just sounded like firecrackers, a whole bag of them going off. Yeah.
Nearby resident Dan Bathe says what happened is not typical for the neighborhood.
But around here, it's usually pretty quiet, except for last night.
Police say a burning vehicle was spotted in South Surrey 15 minutes later, and they are looking into a possible link.
And of course, given the recent acts of violence that we've seen in our lower mainland region, the question probably on a lot of people's minds is this homicide associated to this ongoing gang conflict? And the best answer that I can give you at this point is we're not sure.
At this point, no arrests have been made in the shooting. Police are looking for additional footage from the public. Isabel Regam, CBC News, Langley.
The city of Vancouver is getting closer to decriminalizing the possession of small amounts of illicit drugs.
Health Canada has agreed to formally discuss the plan with the city, and later this hour we'll show you the impact acceptance can have on people who use through the lens of another of the region's police forces. The Abbotsford Police Department's focus has shifted. In the words of one sergeant, he's got bigger fish to fry than people who use drugs. He's more concerned about how he can help them reconnect with mental health supports or get off the street. How that philosophy is growing in BC and around the continent coming up. And the Save on Foods Memorial Centre in Victoria is being reactivated to serve as temporary housing. Starting in March, up to 45 people currently experiencing homelessness will be housed in the arena on a temporary basis. They will also be provided with wraparound supports. This helps the province fulfill its goal of finding shelter for people living in encampments in Victoria by the end of March. The province says it will be working with the city to move people from the arena into long-term sustainable housing.
The city of Vancouver is looking to reduce parking wars on residential streets by charging for mandatory parking permits, and they want your input. The revenue from the residential on-street parking permit will support Vancouver's Climate Emergency Action Plan. The city says reducing the amount of parking space-seeking cars roaming around in residential areas would lead to cleaner air and safer streets, and that would yield more road space for residents, visitors, and service providers. City staff are waiting on public feedback before they confirm the cost of permits, but they say it won't be any higher than $45. You can answer survey questions on the city's website until February 28th.
Well, lots of wintry white stuff at higher elevations on the island this morning. Environment Canada issued its second snowfall warning in under a week for parts of Vancouver Island. Wow, that is a lot of snow. The eastern side between Victoria and Campbell River saw upwards of 5 centimeters. 10 centimeters is expected at higher elevations. An offshore flow brought warmer temperatures this afternoon, causing the snow to ease up. The weather agency reminding drivers to always check Drive BC for up-to-date highway conditions. And I can see Mike laughing through my side eye here.
Yes, well, Joe, that's because her good snow wasn't behaving, at least on the island. Didn't stay way up there in the
That
mountains.
looked fabulous. Looked really nice.
It did look fabulous. Yeah, I think I know where you needed to be today, Anita. Yeah, we didn't see any at lower levels here, but the island, this was, quite the hit. Really staying north of Nanaimo. We didn't see any down around Victoria. Bowen Island, I should also mention, getting another hit of snow, SFU as well. So we did see it in some places, but our window is closing for widespread snow. Let me show you the picture tonight, starting with the current temperatures. 2 up towards the Sunshine Coast, 4 at YVR. Still looking at temperatures to drop down to the low single digits, but staying above the freezing mark tonight for most of Metro Vancouver. Dipping down low for Nanaimo, Squamish, and Hope. You can see temperatures are a little cooler. They're helping to sustain that snow yesterday and earlier this morning. Look at the radar right now. The main system that will be directing our weather for the next 24, 36 hours is actually sitting to the south of us. Clearing showers tonight, but we might get a little band move up from this system, sitting down just on the border of Washington and Oregon there. We'll get that pinwheel through the overnight and to start our Thursday. So heads up, some more mountain snow, possibly some more snow for the Malahat Highway, but really clearing out for the afternoon. We might even see some sunny breaks. I'll take you through to a changing forecast. Definitely no snow in the long range. That's coming up.
I'll take the sun. Thanks, Johanna. Well, TD Bank users across the country are being asked to take note of their accounts.
Customers are reporting charges from DoorDash despite never having used the service.
Diane Buckner looks at how you can avoid becoming a victim.
Check your bank statements. The latest fraud is a charge from DoorDash on your debit card.
A warning from a neighbor on Facebook alerted Lynn Wallace to a fraud.
So what did you do after you saw that post? Called the bank immediately. And I was a victim.
Wallace, who's on a disability pension, saw a $66 charge that appeared to be from DoorDash.
Restaurants come to you.
A food delivery app that doesn't even operate in her town.
Makes me angry.
I just want my money back.
The same thing happened to Karen Lee in BC. She went into the bank after losing $157.
I was in the lineup. I turned around to the guy behind me and I said, check your accounts daily because I've been hacked by DoorDash. And he said, well, that's what I'm here for. And then the lady behind him said the same thing.
Complaints on social media show the fraud has occurred in virtually every province. In a statement to CBC News, TD says a small percentage of its customers were affected for an isolated period. DoorDash says it's working with TD to reimburse victims. Neither company explained how the fraud occurred. It's a reminder that debit cards have changed.
There's no real such thing as debit cards anymore.
This cybersecurity expert says many Canadians are unaware. Banks linked most personal bank accounts to MasterCard and Visa-branded debit cards years ago to enable online purchases.
It's not your bank account that's getting hacked, it's your debit Visa card that's being compromised.
But still, that means the money comes straight out of your bank account.
Many victims of the fraud say they were frustrated by how long they had to wait to get a refund, often more than a month.
They say there's a backlog and, call us in another 2 weeks.
It happens.
Lynn Wallace got her money back, but is left feeling vulnerable.
But I don't want it to happen again. They should be protecting my money.
Consumers can contact their financial institution to put a zero limit on their bank cards for online transactions. And experts say these days that may be wise. Diane Buckner, CBC News, Toronto.
And a quick reminder, if you're not already, you can also watch this newscast live on CBC Gem.
CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
It is never-before-seen video footage of former fashion mogul and accused sexual predator Peter Nygard's treatment of women and girls. Just ahead, for the first time, we will hear from a key member of Nygard's inner circle.
CBC News exclusive reveals never-before-seen video footage of former fashion mogul and accused sexual predator Peter Nygard's treatment of women and girls. For the first time, we will hear from a key member of Nygard's inner circle. The Fifth Estate's Bob McEwen has the latest.
They say Peter Nygard never met a camera he didn't like. It's why he hired personal videographer Stephen Ferraglio.
Nygard told me that the reason why Jesus is so popular is because he had a good PR team. My job was to film literally everything.
Start spreading your legs.
For 3 years, Ferraglio documented all of Nygard's world, from his lavish Boeing jetliner.
Nygard had a bed on the plane, and he would have sex with the girls up in the front of the plane.
To his ever-present female entourage.
They were around when Nygard needed sex, and they would accompany Nygard to dinner. They would be paraded in during the meetings. Nygard would call them the girlfriends.
Now that Nygard faces criminal indictments in the U.S., alleging sexual offenses against dozens of women, Stephen Ferraglio is speaking out.
I think that when people think that they are above the law, the best way to show them that they are not is to literally show them.
And he's got hundreds of hours of video with which to do that.
She's the girl who's underage.
According to the charges, which he denies, Nygard frequently targeted girls as young as 14 or 15.
But just to be here, Olympics, and to be running, good for you.
Here, Ferraglio captured the 70-something Nygard trying to get a phone number from a young Olympic athlete.
He finds out during this conversation that she is 16 years old.
Cell number or something, yeah. 2 phone numbers. I don't want to lose her now that I found her.
Nobody else in my world of Nygard has this evidence. If I don't expose him, he's going to get away with all the things that he's been doing.
For years, Peter Nygard fought in court to keep this video private. Now, Stephen Ferraglio is making it public, starting with the Fifth Estate.
Bob McEwen reporting tonight. Well, it's been just under a week since Julie Payette resigned as Governor General in the wake of that scathing report into a toxic workplace environment.
Our Ashley Burke's reporting led to that review, and tonight she has exclusive details on some disturbing conclusions.
We have been bringing you the details of these claims based on information from our confidential sources, but tonight it is laid out in black and white, written by an independent firm for everyone to read. Now, some of this information, this critical information, is heavily redacted to protect the complainants' identities.
This has gone from being one of the most collegial and enjoyable work environments for many of the staff to being a house of horrors.
They made the allegations in confidence to CBC News, then repeated them in person to investigators, who have now laid out their findings. Quintet concludes that there is a serious problem that requires PCO's immediate attention. 92 people participated and overwhelmingly raised concerns. 43 called it a hostile or negative work environment. 26 said it was toxic or poisoned. Others described it as an atmosphere of humiliation, disrespect, condescension, a non-inclusive workplace, the definition of a poisoned work environment. Employees are stressed out and worn out, validating what the government said was coming.
This report had some disturbing conclusions, and those conversations led the Governor General to conclude that she should offer her resignation.
Allegations of yelling, screaming, aggressive conduct, demeaning comments, and public humiliation. 20 people said they witnessed harassment, and it took its toll. 17 people said they left Rideau Hall because of the workplace environment. 13 said they took sick leave for the same reason. Despite all of this, no formal complaints. There was so much fear and such little trust, employees doubted anything would happen.
The culture was so suppressed there that any complaint would be surmised to have been met by further retaliatory tactics by the Office of the Secretary of the Governor General, that being the Chief of Staff, and those involved in the human resources and labor relations environment.
The report spells out the broad problems, but it doesn't go into the specific details, the incidents. And what our sources say is that behind some of that redacted material is what we reported last night, that some of these cases involving the former Governor General Julie Payette extended from the verbal to the physical, and in some cases people felt threatened. Now, this independent firm was not tasked with investigating each and every claim to find out if it was founded, but they did conclude that there was a toxic work environment that existed for years and that it will take years to repair the damage.
That's the CBC's Ashley Burke in Ottawa tonight.
In our country's fight against COVID-19, some room for cautious optimism tonight as cases continue to creep downwards. Overall, Canada is reporting 4,205 new cases today. But look at this, that downward slope of the 7-day average, that is the cause for some hope. Right now, Canada's 7-day average is about 5,300 cases a day, the lowest it's been since late November.
And despite that trend, health officials are increasingly worried about more infectious variants of the virus.
And how they could change everything. Makta Gabraselassie has more on the fight to contain them, including what's being learned from the UK experience.
This was the last time Pat Ferguson saw her mother in person. The 83-year-old tested positive for COVID-19 2 weeks ago. On Friday, Ferguson made one last phone call to say
that her children love her, her grandchildren love her, that she's been a good mom, you know, the things that you want her to take with her when she's gone.
24 hours later, her mother died. She lived at Roberta Place Long-Term Care Home. The facility north of Toronto is the site of nearly 100 presumptive cases of the B117 variant first found in the UK. New variants have popped up in 4 provinces. BC and Alberta are also dealing with another variant first found in South Africa.
We do not want to be in a position where we are adding to what is already an established number of these variants of concern.
Calls for more controls at the border are getting louder, but it's clear the variants are here. So some are calling for changing measures inside Canada to restrict spread. In Ontario, some experts say it's time for travel restrictions between regions within the province.
I think that's certainly something worth considering, and again, it will all depend on what we discover through the studies. If there is active community spread,
Public Health Ontario is working on figuring that out. The variant from the UK itself is more transmissible and may be more deadly. This virologist from the UK has advice for Canadians.
And it's no different from what we've been doing before, but with the new variant that may be more transmissible, being shed at a higher viral load, you want to try and do all of that.
But even better than before, he says, and that may include multi-masking.
A surgical mask on top of your N95 mask.
The vaccine will help too, but we're still months away from most of us getting the shot. Makta Gabraselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
The International Olympic Committee says it is fully committed to holding the Games as scheduled this summer in Tokyo. Despite obvious concerns around COVID-19, the IOC also says the Games can be held safely. One expert, though, says that's not the real issue.
The question is, do we want to put all of that energy, all of those resources towards what ultimately is a sporting event at a time where there's vaccine scarcity? We've talked about that today. In many parts of the world, there's testing scarcity. Do you want to do that for the athletes, but also for the people working at that venue? It is a lot of energy and resource to put towards it. So that's a broader discussion for people to have.
For his part, IOC President Thomas Bach says the organization is working day and night to keep the Games on schedule and that all stakeholders are still on board. They're due to begin July 23rd, a postponement of 1 year.
After the break, how Vancouver is vying to decriminalize simple possession of illicit drugs and why some police and advocates say the current methods just aren't working.
Action!
Now, if you're an avid skier, you may think that this is Mount Seymour, but actually, it's Yugoslavia, at least for the purposes of television series The Fall Guy. They've come all the way to Vancouver from Hollywood to film some stunts.
Roll, Donnie!
Of course, in television, nothing is ever really what it seems to be. The Fall Guy is about stuntmen, but sometimes the stunts they try are too tough even for stuntmen. They have to use stunt dummies.
In other words, it was incredible, right?
And when they do strap a real live body into a car, it's not Lee Majors who plays the star stuntman in the series. The real fall guy on The Fall Guy is Lee Majors' stunt double, Mickey Gilbert.
Actors don't even want to get involved in stunts anymore. Lee Majors, he does a lot of his fights, and he really likes to get involved in what he's doing with the stunts. And he'll go as far as I might let him go, you know what I'm saying? But we don't let him go. Things like we were doing today where we're flipping the cars and stuff, you can't take a chance on hurting an actor because the show's down the tubes and I'm out of going to the bank. But you don't think about like being hurt because you know you won't get hurt. Your safety in there is so good. We really safety ourselves pretty good in the cars, and they're well stressed with roll bars and padding. Believe me, we wouldn't do it if we thought we'd get hurt.
He's good. Great. Good.
I didn't really think I'd turn over. I really didn't. But when I was in the air, I knew I'd turn over. For sure.
Boys and girls, that's Mickey Gilbert. Hey!
The only thing which would have changed that whole jump today is if we would have had a straighter shot into the ramp and then had more of a degree built at the end to where the car would sink in and pop out of the ramp. Then it would stay more floating in the air, and it would have come down on all fours. It would have been a prettier jump. It's probably a stuntman's dream to have a show like The Fall Guy. I mean, there isn't one stuntman in Hollywood that wouldn't love to be able to do this show.
Okay, let's go. We're losing the light.
If it's a dream for stuntmen, it can be a nightmare of fading light for the director.
Joe, he's ready? Okay, let's go.
Because they require several cameras and lots of people to make them work, stunts are expensive. And The Fall Guy's second unit director, Michael Lang, said he came to Canada this time because it's cheaper than the States.
Go. I know we gotta go. Well, in this case, it actually was a lot less expensive to do it here.
Do you ever have a moment's pause when you see a car in midair, nose down, like you did this afternoon with Mickey?
Yes. Generally, what I'm thinking is, what other cuts am I now going to need to do to make this work for what we've already got?
For one stunt, they built an extension onto one of the little ski chalets so they could drive a snowmobile through it.
Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Until such time as the public health officer advises me that there's a benefit to going down that road, we're going to leave it untraveled for the time being.
Premier John Horgan says BC is not considering following Manitoba's lead in implementing a mandatory 14-day quarantine order for people traveling here from other provinces. He's also promised to get tough on anyone ignoring public health orders. No new penalties or enforcement measures have been announced.
No, give me your information. Give me your information. Give me your information. Give me your name and...
Police are searching for a young woman who spat on a bus driver in Victoria. The driver had to make a sudden stop, and police say a young woman sitting at the front fell from her seat and became irate with the driver. She yelled at him and then pulled on the plexiglass barrier and spat on him. This incident happened October 29th, just after 6:30 in the evening on Quadra Street.
Given the recent acts of violence that we've seen in our Lower Mainland region, the question probably on a lot of people's minds is this homicide associated to this ongoing gang conflict? And the best answer that I can give you at this point is we're not sure.
A 22-year-old man has been shot and killed in Langley. Another man in his early 20s was taken to hospital. It happened just before midnight near 207 Street and 53A Avenue. Police are asking anyone with surveillance footage or dash cam video from the area to come forward.
The City of Vancouver is drawing closer to decriminalizing possession of small amounts of illicit drugs. The plan is being discussed with Health Canada.
And advocates across the region say it's a step that could bring real change. Our Briar Stewart heard more from people on the ground level who could see that change firsthand.
It's grown since the last time we were back here.
Along this makeshift pathway, strewn with garbage, are some of Abbotsford's most vulnerable. Many addicted to drugs, living in the shadow of a highway overpass.
Just because I love you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're doing okay.
Kim Friesen is the coordinator of Project Angel, a peer-driven outreach team that works to support those who are homeless or consumed by addiction.
The systems are very hard to navigate when you're street entrenched, when you're struggling with mental health.
And part of what makes this program unique is its connection to the local police.
Are you looking to get into detox?
Sergeant Kevin Murray is not too interested in the drug paraphernalia that lies on the ground, or too bothered when someone prepares to smoke crack cocaine in front of him.
Are you on the list?
Bro, they don't give a man. Pass me the pipe that you got handed to you.
5 years ago, he says, it would basically be unheard of for an officer to respond this way.
You smoked right in front of me, man. That's the natural progression of what's happening here.
He says there's been a shift in policing.
I have bigger fish to fry and bigger worries than whether or not they're using some heroin. It's more like, how do we get you off the streets? How do I get you reconnected to a mental health professional?
Shane, are you back here?
Near the back of the encampment, we're introduced to Shane Patmore.
We've got harm reduction, we've got Narcan, we've got juice, we've got chocolate.
He built this shed on top of a swamp where he stays with his girlfriend, Kelsey Martin.
That's some of the heroin that's on.
That's not much at all.
That's like a half a point.
Yeah, it's like $10 worth. Yeah, I have a pretty hefty habit, so I can do probably this 10 times a day.
Because they know the outreach team, they aren't afraid to show us the drugs, even though they both say they've spent time in jail before. What they're most fearful of is an overdose.
Most people that are dying from this stuff are dying alone, right? You know what I mean? And that's because they are hiding from it, right? Or they don't want to get caught by the police with it or something, because then it's a whole new ball game for them, right? You know what I mean?
In the past year, Canada's opioid crisis has become even deadlier, striking all communities and demographics. And there's been a growing call for a drastic change, decriminalization, which means those who are found with small amounts of drugs would no longer face criminal charges.
So I've made it clear to the Prime Minister where British Columbia stands.
BC has called for it, and so has Vancouver City Council. Even the Canadian Association of the Chiefs of Police is pushing to decriminalize simple possession. In recent years, the number of people being charged has declined. Still in 2019, more than 18,000 Canadians were charged with possession.
I've heard so many people, politicians, medical practitioners, say that this is a health issue. I don't know any other health issue where people actually get punished and go to jail because of it. Safety first. Go Gia!
It might not look like it as you watch Guy Felicella play with his young family, but when he speaks about the stigma around drug use, he's speaking from experience. A lot of it.
How many times have you had to say goodbye to people this year because of overdoses?
This year's, honestly, I can't even count. It breaks my heart because I'd been there for so long, and I just know the struggle and the pain with that.
He first started using as a teenager and spent more than 20 years roaming a 2-block radius on Vancouver's downtown east side, going in and out of jail.
We don't want people fixing in the laneways, okay? Okay. Because it makes us look bad, makes like we're not doing our job.
Back then, policing might have looked different, but many of the problems were the same. Felicella overdosed 6 times before finally going for treatment in 2013.
Hey, what's your future looking like, buddy? Pretty good, eh?
Today, he's an advisor with the BC Centre for Substance Use and a vocal advocate for decriminalization.
I know the difference it would have made in my life would have been astronomical. It would definitely make one feel supported and definitely give them the ability to reach out much sooner.
And that's also why Amelia Fowler pushed so hard for it in Oregon.
This was as I was deploying to Afghanistan in 2014.
Her father died of a fentanyl overdose 2 years ago.
61, really young. Putting people in jail ruins families when treatment can help families.
Fowler was one of the community organizers pushing for Measure 110.
Oregon became the first state in the country to decriminalize.
It was passed last November and comes into effect February 1st. The change means that anyone caught with a small amount of drugs in Oregon, including heroin, methamphetamine, and ecstasy, won't face a criminal penalty. Instead of going to jail, they'll be fined $100, and that can be waived if they agree to go through a health assessment.
I absolutely believe that he would still be here today had certain resources been made available to him.
Oregon has one of the highest rates of substance use in the U.S., and it's among the lowest spenders on treatment. Part of the new law requires the government to direct more funds towards recovery services.
What we're doing right now isn't working. I have seen firsthand how having a criminal record can impact you in every single way.
In Canada, the federal government says it's reviewing the request to end criminal penalties.
We know that there is no one solution to stopping the opioid epidemic.
The Prime Minister has described decriminalization as not a silver bullet, but Benjamin Perrin believes it's cruel not to move on it while people are still dying.
The current law is indefensible, right? Show me the peer-reviewed evidence that criminalizing people who use drugs work.
Perrin has done extensive research on the opioid crisis, but before that, he worked for a year as legal counsel for Stephen Harper. He says it became clear to him arresting people for addiction is senseless.
The buck stops with the Prime Minister. The reason that he's afraid of decriminalizing drugs, which we know is the right thing to do and the evidence points towards, is because the federal Conservatives have in the past demonized people who use drugs. I'm just here to say that's wrong. Like, that cannot continue.
But even without action from the federal government, change is already happening. The Public Prosecution Service told federal lawyers to avoid prosecuting simple drug possession unless there are major safety concerns.
So we just want to check in and see how you guys are doing, if you needed anything.
BC has directed all of its police to consider a harm reduction approach instead of criminal penalties. In Abbotsford, Sergeant Murray says they're already doing that and doesn't feel it sends any kind of harmful message about drug use.
I'm not sure that decriminalizing simple possession has the effect of condoning drug use. I'm still not a fan every time I come across somebody who's smoking heroin in front of me. That just signals to me that there are more complex issues at play. We can get this all done.
On this morning, the team discovered the couple in this tent had lost some ID, which is making it difficult to get social assistance.
We gotta make it work, sister.
Yep, we do.
Right? Gotta get that check in.
An example, Murray says, of what the priority is now. Instead of only enforcing the law, they're trying to connect people with the help they need. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Abbotsford, BC.
A river of lava and massive clouds of gas. Indonesia's most active volcano erupts. The damage coming up.
The lights on Grouse Mountain there at 6:44. That's a live shot. Well, after an unsettled weather day on the South Coast, improving conditions are on the way, at least for a while. Johanna's forecast is coming next.
It's been a crazy journey for sure. So I always wanted to do music my whole life. So I started this YouTube channel. It was just for fun. I did a talent show thing, and then I was like, oh wow, the reaction that I got from people was crazy. It just was an amazing feeling. So I kind of brought that onto YouTube, and then after that, people started following me and seeing my talent and seeing what I can do. And then just after that, I kept going, and I was able to manage my own self and just be able to just do what I love. And it was one of the best feelings to when you're doing something you love, it just feels great. You lit me up. You made me feel. The first video I made literally got I don't know how, it was getting viewers out of nowhere. It was 10,000 views. I was like, okay, what's going on? Am I getting hacked? So I thought it was so random to me. 10,000 views, 20,000 views, and it just kept going. And then after that, I just kept making more, and then it just kept growing and growing, really. I do a lot of covers, and I sing a lot of my songs as well. So I'm saying I know my audience, from the way they talk to me and from the way they interact with my stuff. It's kind of how I know them. That I have a new song called Fight. Worked really hard on it with PCB at Blue Door Recording. We were just there. We were doing our thing, and then he was like, okay, let's try this, something different. But we've been making a lot more, so I want people to stay tuned for that. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, any streaming platform, and I just want people to support me because I'm from Saskatchewan. Honestly, I don't think there's a lot of people that watch me from Saskatchewan. I think a lot of people watch me like it. I guess it's around the world because I really, even if I ask them, because I go live sometimes and I just connect with them, and I would tell them, yo, where are you guys all from? And then it's just, they're everywhere. Like they're really everywhere. It's crazy. But obviously I have a Filipino background, so a lot of my Filipino fan base is there too. But there's a lot of like United States as well. It's like, it's very different, but they're all from everywhere, which is like a cool feeling. Cause like, it's just, I'm just here, right? I'm just in my room doing my thing and they're watching me around the world.
If you let me inside your world, there'll be one less lonely girl.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates. Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
One of Indonesia's most active volcanoes erupted today, prompting warnings, lava reaching nearby roads. Scientists reported seeing clouds of ash and smoke spewing at least 30 times since this morning. Much of that ash ended up on nearby homes. Fortunately, there are no reports of damage or injuries. Indonesia has more volcanoes than any other country in the world.
Johanna Wagstaffe back with us now. Joe, if you were a meteorologist in, I don't know, Phoenix or Scottsdale or something, you might be perhaps a little bored because it's kind of the same, but not here. You get like everything going on in one day.
It's true, yes. If I was, Scottsdale would be very boring. I mean, I could just dial it in every day, set a pre-record in the morning. That is not the case here. It's the way we like it, nice and interesting. Let me start off with a big picture look, talking about interesting Vancouver and the South Coast. The only place across Canada right now in the plus degree range. Cold across the Atlantic, still seeing those extreme wind chills tonight in through Manitoba and Northern Ontario. Our friends in Southern Ontario digging out of 10 to 15 centimeters of snow. We're seeing that Arctic air descend on Northern BC. So places like the Peace getting into the minus 35 wind chill range for tomorrow morning. But that's as far as that Arctic boundary goes. This is the swirling low that's created some interesting weather once again. You can see snow actually pushing up from the south in through the interior. That's that counterclockwise motion around the center of the low. So we're actually getting a southerly flow, bringing that snow from the southern interior all the way through to the Kootenays, getting a good 5 to 10 centimeters through the valley floors in the Okanagan. Lesser amounts as we head out towards the Kootenays, I should say, but some good mountain snow as well. And then taking you through Thursday afternoon into Friday, bit of a break between systems for Friday. And then we get the next cold front, and this one much more reminiscent of the first half of the season, a west coast low bringing warmer temperatures and pretty wet and windy conditions right the way down our coast. Quick look at those snowfall totals for the BC interior for the next 36 hours. The higher elevations, the darker amounts though, those are for the mountains where we could see another 10 to 40 centimeters of snow on the mountain passes as well. But again, even Kelowna, 5 to 7 centimeters, Cranbrook Pembroke traced to 5 centimeters up towards Revelstoke, getting a good amount of mountain snow. Williams Lake, some trace as well. So places that we haven't seen a lot of snow this winter. We've got a almost record-breaking amount of snow in through the mountains, but it has been almost record-breakingly low for the valleys in the interior. So a rare shot of snow this season. Look at those temperatures, minus 12 up towards Prince George, more like a minus 30 as your wind chill tomorrow morning. And Prince Rupert, enjoy the last of the sunshine tomorrow. Same with Haida Gwaii and the central and northern coastal sections. It has been a nice run, but as I said, a classic rainmaker is moving in for Friday, and that will slide down to us for the weekend. So hoping for some sunny breaks tomorrow afternoon. I didn't put them in, but if we get them, that'll be a nice surprise. Friday, dry, but mainly cloudy. And yeah, gear up for the kind of weekends we know well. Wet, warm, gross.
All of the above. Okay, it's
all
never
of the
dull.
above.
It's never dull. Thanks.
At least there's warm.
Exactly.
Well, another pandemic pastime is made all the stronger by isolation. Coming up, meet some Yukoners whose passion is not COVID impacted.
This puzzle here has 4,000 pieces. It's about 4 feet by 3 feet in size, and it's things that look pretty well identical in that, and dark colors, and it was quite a challenge to do that one. Most of the other puzzles in the garage here are all 1,000 pieces. I do like the challenge of at least 1,000 pieces. I always had a sort of a passion doing jigsaw since I was a kid up back in Saskatchewan doing them in the cold winter days. My dad had a team of horses, and we used to always have them hooked up to a wagon or a sleigh to deliver things around to the small town that I grew up in, and so that brings back old memories, that one. I've been trying to find things to do to keep you busy over the COVID season. I think it really keeps you alert. It's a little bit hard on the eyes, so I don't do it continuously during the day, an hour here and an hour there. This one here was very interesting to do. As you get going, you find that there's more lions and tigers in it, and I think once you get done, I think I counted up that there was actually about 25 to 30 lions or tigers of different sizes throughout the whole puzzle. A lot of the manufacturers are coming up with really new ways of cutting the puzzle, which is really good. And some of them are really irregular size, and they're not square and anything, so those ones were a little tricky to do the outside on. I think on the wall now there's 50. This one here and this one here, they're made up of a lot of the same color, especially this one here, a lot of yellows and a little bit of brown in it. This one here was very interesting to do. I have quite an interest in presidents of the United States. I've read a lot of the biographies of the different presidents. I've got about 2/3 of the garage now covered. When I run out of space, I'll probably quit then.
Children and parents stand outside Indus Arena carrying signs and calling for the return of their favorite sport. Local organizer Chantal Unger says the kids are wearing masks and keeping distance, but just want to have their voices heard.
Each kid made their own sign, and they just want to play hockey or whatever sport they're in.
Unger is calling on the province to let kids play, even if it means just playing with their own teams.
Anything to get them, together, doing things, feeling normal like children.
Minor hockey player Griffin Brown says he misses being on the ice and wants to be allowed to play again.
It's like my life. I've been skating since I was like 3. I don't know, it's like everything to me.
As for Unger, she worries about the impact the community sports ban will have on kids in the future.
These kids, they need this. This is so important for them, for their mental health, for their physical health. They need it.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC is proud to sponsor the 27th annual online Victoria Film Festival, Vancouver Island's largest and longest running film fest. Get your tickets today at victoriafilmfestival.com. And never miss a special programming series or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
Okay, the pandemic has led many people across the Northern Territories to spend more time outdoors. They're doing all kinds of things: skidooing, kick sledding, and skating.
But on Marsh Lake in Yukon, there's a couple who didn't need a pandemic to get them fishing. The CBC Yukon's Chris McIntyre went out to meet them.
There's no better way to isolate than being out here.
Debbie Champagne and Kelly Christopherson have been ice fishing on Marsh Lake since 1986. That's 34 years catching lake trout and jackfish. Every weekend, the two pack up their fishing gear and search for the perfect spot on the lake to set up camp. Champagne says for her, the feeling of catching a fish is special.
When you get a tug on your line, it's like a first kiss. Your knees go all wobbly and you get all happy, fuzzy, warm feeling inside. Yeah, it's like a first kiss.
Fishing for Champagne is also healing. Living with rheumatoid arthritis, Champagne sometimes has trouble with her hands. She says at times the pain is unbearable, but when she's fishing, she doesn't even notice it.
I can barely put the downriggers out, but if I get a fish on, I can, for some reason, grab that line and reel it in and forget that I had anything wrong with me for a long time. So fishing's healing.
So far today, neither Champagne or Christopherson have had any luck. Christopherson says that's not unusual. He spent many hours on Marsh Lake without catching a single fish. Yet, he still comes back.
And this lake, Marsh Lake, you can fish a lot of times without getting a bite. Once you catch one the first time, then you're kind of hooked.
Friends and family often join them on their fishing trips. Multiple holes spaced apart allow people to gather while keeping safe distances. Champagne says that ice fishing is a perfect activity to have during the pandemic, though they've been doing it for much longer.
Did they say love at first catch?
Love at first bite.
Oh, right.
As the day comes close to an end, they haven't caught any fish, not even a nibble. But for Champagne and Christopherson, the real catch is spending time together doing what they love. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Marsh Lake.
Looks cold.
I was just saying to Mike, there's no way you're ever going to find me on a frozen lake. I don't care how thick that ice is.
So if you're not going to skate on it, no ice fishing for you. What, you've never skated on a
Never
outdoor?
Skated on an outdoor frozen lake pond.
Lost Lagoon, Trout Lake.
No, I will not do it.
They're not that deep.
I'll watch you.
Okay, I'll try it. Thanks for watching tonight. Just a reminder, you can always watch our newscasts online, cbc.ca/BC.
Next local news is right here at 11 with Dan Burritt after the National. Good night.
Good night.